Hey, how's it going? It's Concrete, back again so soon. You're worth it, don't question it, let's roll with it. So we are reaching the terminal station on our vape train ride. I've got one more video after this is going to be dealing with some of their toffees, but a lot of this is going to be kind of odds and ends just mushed together without thematic consistency. So I present you a video full of odds and ends. We are going to go over Vape Train Blood Orange Champagne. We're going to go over Vape Train Bubblegum Base, and we are going to cover Vape Train English Marmalade. It was a spoiler alert. That one's weird. I did not pay for these. The only one I paid for is English Marmalade, and it did not turn out well, but thank you, Vape Train, for the ones you sent me. First, we start with Vape Train's Blood Orange Champagne. The thing is, this is a really classy profile. Like, it sounds fancy. Blood Orange Champagne. I really like this one. So part of the interesting thing about this flavor, though, is that the champagne note is great. Champagne here is fantastic. It's by far the best champagne flavor that I've tried, and I've tried most of them that I know of from the major manufacturers at this point. This one absolutely nails it. It actually tastes like champagne. It's just a little bit boozy. It has like a funky kind of mineral tang to it, a little bit of sweetness, and whatever passes as fizz in vaping, this definitely has it in spades. It's a very realistic champagne note, and I dig that. The blood orange is a little bit different here. So this is definitely an artificial blood orange flavor. It isn't like a mimosa made with blood orange juice. It's like a sparkling canned wine beverage that they added some blood orange flavor to. It's a pretty good flavor. Definitely kind of a sweeter orange flavor. It doesn't have any like citrus sourness or depth to it. There's no zest or anything like that. Just kind of a flat blood orange flavor with maybe a little bit of bitterness sort of offsetting some of that more intense sweetness. Reminds me a lot of Flavor Art's Blood Orange Red, but a little bit more present, a little bit more bitter, a little bit more fleshed out. It works really well with champagne, but if you're looking for like that realistic mimosa kind of vibe, this isn't necessarily going to give you that. But it is an absolutely delicious solo flavor. If you're into cocktail vapes at all, you definitely kind of owe it to yourself to pick this one up because it is that good vaping it solo. I like it around 7%, which is a little bit on the high end, but it's a really, really good flavor. If you like cocktail vapes and you don't want to do any work, just mix this solo. Fantastic. If you want to actually get into mixing with this, though, it does work pretty well. I've mixed it with other boozes. I've mixed it with other fruits. I've thrown it with like lemonades and stuff like that. Like all of that stuff works out pretty well. For a strong champagne component, I'd probably be around 4 to 5% while mixing it. But I do like my vapes a little bit boozy. You go a little bit lower if you just want some of that fizz and a little bit of like orange kick to something at 2 to 3%. But if you're into cocktail vapes, this should definitely be in your toolkit. Good job, Vape Train. Next, I have Vape Train's Bubblegum Base. This is another one that people wanted to see. Sort of bucking the trend of the Vape Train bases not really working as solo flavors. This one kind of does. So my understanding of pink bubblegum in specific has been very deeply informed by like a random post that I will link down in the description talking about how pink bubblegum was actually made originally. And apparently it was like wintergreen, cinnamaldehyde, and orange oil, and that's kind of where that pink bubblegum flavor comes from. I feel like this kind of follows that general tack. Like, it tastes old-timey. It doesn't taste necessarily like a super sweet, aggressive pink bubblegum flavor for kids. There's a little bit of nuance. You can pick out some of the individual components. It does have a fairly good spearmint note in here, and there is just a little bit of cooling, but not nearly anything that I'd call icy. The wintergreen comes out nice and strong. It works well with everything else. The spice component here doesn't necessarily taste like cinnamon to me, but that could just be because it's up against the wintergreen and the fruit here, but it does have something that's a little bit more spice heavy to it. It almost feels it's closer to like a black licorice kind of flavor rather than just straight cinnamon, but it's kind of hard to tell how those flavors interact all the way. The fruit is pretty generic. I would say it's more of like a generic like tutti fruity flavor than actually just straight orange oil, but it does have some sweet citrus character to it. Even though you can pick out those individual parts, like they do really add up to tasting like a pink bubblegum flavor, and that's pretty cool. So for as aggressive of all those constituent flavors sound, the overall effect is actually surprisingly mellow. I think I originally mixed this up at like 1%, thinking it was going to be like an absolute bomb because it's a base and then you have all those really big flavors, but that's pretty soft actually. Even up at like 5%, I'm not getting anything completely overwhelming. Here's where it gets a little bit weird though. So with a lot of the bubblegum concentrates on the market, they have a very like chalky, dry, kind of chewy mouthfeel, and this one really doesn't. It's more of just a bubblegum flavor without that sort of off-putting bubblegum base. So I think this might end up actually being very useful for a couple of very niche applications. In general, I feel like if you're going to make a fruit bubblegum, it's usually a bad idea to just grab a pink bubblegum flavor and throw in a bunch of fruit, but this might actually kind of work because this isn't a really overwhelming flavor. It just adds like some of a very unique bubblegum spice profile on top of other fruits. Won't really help you with the texture at all. You're still like gonna have to worry about kind of texturizing that, but it's interesting. And I think the other place this might come in really handy is working with creams for like a bubblegum ice cream or something, because it's hard to get that bubblegum flavor without having the like dry, chalky texture, just steamroll whatever ice cream you're trying to mix with. I think this is going to let you do that. I haven't messed with it too extensively, but in a couple of very quick tests, it seems like it's trending that way. So this might end up being fairly interesting. Because it's not a super intense flavor, I feel like if you're going to go like the fruits or creams route with this, 3 to 4% is probably pretty safe. If you did just want to use this to like buck up the flavor in another bubblegum concentrate, then maybe go for about 2%. But yeah, this is odd, but not odd in the way that the other Vape Train bases are. So this one's super interesting. And last for today, we have Vape Train English Marmalade. This flavor is very close to the bane of my existence. I have spent over 6 months trying to figure out this flavor. Now that's not like I've been huddled up in a lab for 6 months with a lab coat on taking like detailed research notes. I mean that every time I'm like, oh, hey, that flavor couldn't possibly work that way, I'll go back to it and vape it. I've had testers of this stuff out for like 6 months. It never starts making any sense. So one of the first things I did in trying to figure out what was up with this flavor is I started asking other people what they got. Fresh said it was a delicious orange marmalade. I'm pretty sure Koppel said the same thing. I don't get that at all. What I get is I get a candy strawberry flavor with maybe a little bit of like kiwi tartness. I had Shindo order this and he told me it was like a TPA strawberry mixed with dragon fruit. Like it's definitely in the candy strawberry genre, and I've heard that from other people, including Benjamin Horn. So yeah, shout out to you, dude. You know, like I don't see how this is any kind of citrus marmalade. It just doesn't make any sense. And it's supposed to be a citrus marmalade. That's been confirmed with Vape Train. In the amount of things that I've tested trying to figure out what I'm doing wrong here, why this doesn't taste like a citrus marmalade, I've varied percentages. I've mixed this from 1 to 10%. All still tastes like a candy strawberry. I mix this with other things. All still tastes like adding strawberry to something. Even when you mix it with like a actual citrus flavor, it just feels like a strawberry orange as opposed to, hey, this is a perfect orange marmalade. I don't get it. And if you want to talk steeping, I've had a sample fresh. I've had a sample out past 6 months, and most points in between. It never tastes like a citrus marmalade. I've come to the conclusion this is either some elaborate prank, or I'm losing my mind, and so are some other people that taste some sort of strawberry flavor out of this. With that said, it's not an awful candy strawberry. I feel like I'm usually a pretty hard strawberry mute, and this has some of the same problems as other candy strawberries for me. I taste them originally, they taste pretty plastic, and then they kind of fade out after 2-3 drags and start to taste a little bit earthy. This does exactly the same thing for me. I think percentage-wise, anything above 5% I found gets earthy really quickly, but it is like a fairly competent tartar candy strawberry for At least those 2-3 drags. This is probably the least helpful flavor note I will ever do because this flavor just makes me angry because I've tried to figure it out and I can't. I'm throwing up my hands. I quit. If you want to try this flavor, but I don't understand how this is a marmalade. That is officially the last time I ever have to talk about Vape Train English Marmalade again, though. So I feel like a weight has been lifted from my chest. Personal enrichment, it's been great, but let's move on. I've got some Vape Train toffees coming up here. Then one more odds and ends video. We'll burn through all that. If you did want to check out more detailed flavor notes on these things, you can go to my super duper professional website, tasteofconcrete.com, and read words as opposed to listen to me talk them sort of coherently. I really do appreciate you watching. Thank you. I will catch you later. Marmalade.